through the Steel City. Is everybody ready to go? Let's proclaim the greatest radio show.
Welcome, fans, to our wild card round recap. I'm your host, Jim Sella, here with Jay Dash. The Pittsburgh Steelers handled the Miami Dolphins 30-12 on Sunday. It was never really even that close after the two quick scores by Antonio Brown on the first two drives of the game. Then Le'Veon Bell really took over and kind of literally ran Miami into the ground. Squished the fish, whatever you want to say. Miami just didn't look like they wanted to be out there.
Well, that 14 points early by Antonio Brown was huge, but really it was 20-6 at halftime, and Miami was driving there at the end of the half, and James Harrison came up with a huge play, forced that fumble there, and then they really had 3 turnovers on 3 straight drives there at the end, which, I mean, if they would have scored a touchdown there, then it's just a one-score game, but to start the second half as well, the same thing happened. I think it was Mike Mitchell that forced a fumble on the first drive of the second half when they were down in scoring range again. And then Ryan Shazier came up with a pick right after that on the next drive. So after those 3 drives, it was really over.
Yeah, Miami turned the ball over 3 times in 9 plays. It's not going to help out.
No, but really, I understand Matt Moore made some mistakes in this game, the 2 fumbles and the pick, obviously, in those 3 drives. But still, I think he did a good job keeping cool and making plays towards the end of the game. I mean, he was 29 for 36, just 7 incompletions, and he did have that touchdown late in the game. They went for 2 and missed, obviously. But if he wouldn't have had those turnovers early, they could have stayed in that game, maybe scored there at the end of the half. And then even if they came up with a field goal the second time around, they would have probably just kicked the extra point in the end of the game. And you got a 30-23 score, and anything can happen from there. So I think it's a combination of Miami just not coming out and being ready for this game, making those mistakes, and the Pittsburgh Steelers came out to play some football.
Now, there was a lot of talk about the Steelers' young defensive players, Artie Burns, Sean Davis, and Javon Hargrave. What about the 2 old guys that were balling on Sunday, Lawrence Timmons and James Harrison? Timmons had 14 tackles, 2 sacks. I don't remember how many tackles Harrison had, but he had, I think, a sack and a half and that forced fumble. Big games by both those old guys.
10 tackles. He almost had another sack as well, that Mike Mitchell forced fumble. James Harrison was right there. If Mike Mitchell wouldn't forced that fumble, Harrison might have, but he'd at least had another sack there as well.
What about Mike Mitchell laying out Ross Cockrell?
Yeah, I seen that. That's Mike Mitchell. That's what he does.
What about Matt Moore coming back into the game after only missing 1 play after Bud Dupree knocked him into another time zone?
Yeah, I guess they're being looked into to see if they did everything right with that or whatever. But, I mean, there was sort of a timeout there. There wasn't really a timeout, I don't think, but they took a break after that. I think there was time for them to check him out at least. I don't know. Maybe he was fine to go back in. I have no problem with it.
The thing I don't like is Dupree was penalized for a hit to the head.
Man,
okay?
he smoked him.
Yeah, but I'm a little on the fence about whether the hit was legal or not. But then when Matt Moore went out, the trainers said that they checked his back out and everything because his back was hurting, not his head. So if he's penalized for a hit to the head and then he's not being really held out, I don't know. From the way the NFL does concussions, in the last few years, I just really don't think that there's any way that he should have been allowed back in that football game, at least that quick. I tried to talk to Brandon about it, but he was indisposed with the birth of his first child.
Oh, yeah, so congratulations, man, if you're listening.
He did not get to see the game, but he said once he goes back and watches the game on his DVR, he'll let me know what he thinks.
As for that play, I mean, he really didn't hit him in the head. It was pretty much the chin or the high chest area, really, with his helmet. So, who knows? Maybe he didn't have anything wrong with his head, and he did have a back injury. So, I don't know. You can't really say from that hit. If it had hit him straight in the head, then maybe they did something wrong that we could see. But really, I don't know. I don't think there was going to be a head injury from that. Maybe he just had a back injury, and that's what they needed to check.
I don't know, man. Even hitting your head, the back of your head on the turf, getting drilled that hard, it's got to hurt.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it does. But, I mean, that happens a lot throughout a game. If every player came out of the game that ended up hitting his head on the turf, I mean, Ben would probably be coming out all the time as well.
What about Roethlisberger? He only had 18 attempts, 18 completions. What was it?
13 completions, 18 attempts. I think he
18
was
attempts.
9 for 9 at one point, and it was like first
11
quarter
for
or
11,
something.
actually.
11 for 11, and that was
hmm
somewhere late first quarter, early second quarter, and then they really didn't need to pass after that because Le'Veon Bell was breaking off chunks of yardage all game, especially starting there in the second half. I mean, it was 8 yards, 9 yards every carry.
Is he the best back in Steelers history already?
He's working his way there real quick. They've had some good backs. I mean, Jerome Bettis was good for a very long time. Franco Harris, obviously, very good running back. So it's hard to say. I mean, if he retired today, it would be hard to say that he's been the best back in Steelers history, but he's well on his way. I mean, he plays a few more years. He's definitely going to be considered.
This season alone, he set the single game regular season record and playoff rushing record. So he's definitely on his way there. Is he better than Barry Foster?
Yes, he's better than Barry Foster. Please believe
Love that dude. How about this defense shutting down the run game of Miami? Jay Ajayi rushed for over 200 yards against Pittsburgh in the regular season. What did he get, 33 this week?
33 yards. The team had 52 on 21 carries, and one of those was a 15-yard run by Damian Williams, who actually ended up with 14 yards rushing. So this team completely dominated on the ground. That's what I said they needed to do. That's what you said they would do. You called it that they wouldn't have 100 yards as a team. I said they need to come out and force Matt Moore to beat him, and that's what they did. Matt Moore, just a couple mistakes, which cost them bigly, as you like to say.
Bigly.
And and he just didn't do enough, although he didn't look terrible for his first playoff game, correct? That was his first playoff game?
Yeah.
So he didn't look bad, but without that run game, there was no chance for him, really.
If you're the Dolphins organization, are you moving ahead with Tannehill or Moore?
I'm moving ahead with Tannehill. Tannehill's my guy, definitely. Maybe you draft someone as a backup for Tannehill next season and he turns into a starter later or something. But I don't think Matt Moore is going to be the answer. He played pretty well in his time at the end of the season there. Everybody thought they were going to miss the playoffs when Tannehill went down. Matt Moore kept them afloat. He only got sacked one time when he became starter there in the regular season. But the Pittsburgh defense came out to play in this game. Like I said, they completely shut down the run, sacked Matt Moore 5 times in this game. They were all over the field. I know Javon Hargrave only had 1 tackle in this game, but he was holding up 2 linemen at a time several times throughout this game. He's really a big reason why this defense has taken a step forward this year, and these linebackers in this game were all over the field.
Is Big Ben really hurt? A lot of the stories around Pittsburgh are about Joey Porter and getting arrested after the game. The other stories are about Roethlisberger being in a walking boot. We kind of talked about it a little bit off air, and we both agree that we don't think that, he's a guy who embellishes injuries or fakes injuries. But I've been reading a couple comments online. I'm not even going to read who said them because I don't want to give them credit because I hate these trolls. But the one guy says, I've never seen a QB fake as many injuries as Roethlisberger. Look for that boot to go right back on the second the Steelers start to fall behind. This team knows it can't beat a team with an actual starting QB. Heck, they couldn't even beat Tebow, who barely fit the definition of a starter. Another guy says, I stand by my statement that he is a drama queen. He talks about his phantom injuries more than any player in the NFL. Hashtag drama queen. Another guy says, it's January football when Big Ben is making excuses before a game that Pittsburgh isn't favored. Hide the co-eds. It's almost rapist time.
So what do they get? What does Ben get out of faking this injury?
That's what I don't understand. People that say he does it say he gets the ability to, after he wins, to say, oh, look, I won and I played hurt. I'm so great, to kind of pump his chest up. But I don't.
Then if you
I've
lose,
never heard him make a statement like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's ridiculous. There's no reason. Like, how's it being in a walking boot help, anyways? Is that going to prepare you for the next game? Is KC going to prepare for Landry Jones because of it? The only thing I could think of, you fake it so you don't have to go to the Pro Bowl.
There you go.
I mean,
Nobody wants to go to the Pro Bowl.
if you lose against KC, people aren't going to say, "Oh, it's because Ben Roethlisberger was hurt." I mean, Big Ben's hurt a lot, so I don't take that as an excuse. Anyways, you got to go out there and win the game. But like I said, if they lose that game, then he can say, "Oh, I'm not going to the Pro Bowl," because nobody likes to go to the Pro Bowl.
It's garbage. All the trolls just like to hate on Roethlisberger because people outside of the Pittsburgh fan base are basically jealous, and it fits the Patriots as well. People outside of the Patriots fan base, they hate the Patriots. So everything they do, it's garbage. Everything Brady does, he's a cheater. So it fits multiple teams.
Did Ben fake an injury earlier this season so he didn't have to play the Patriots?
I guess. Probably. He was afraid. Actually, hold on. I swear there might have been another comment about that. Let me look real quick.
But really, whether Ben's hurt or not, it's not like he's coming out and having great games since he was injured the first time around. He came out and won that Baltimore game in the end of the game. That was a big win for him. That's something he needed coming into the playoffs because he really didn't win a game in the end all season long, really. But still, he's not really having big games. Just 197 yards in this game, 2 touchdowns through 2 interceptions. It was all Antonio Brown early, and really, that's all there was in this game. Antonio Brown, 5 catches for 124 yards. Nobody else had more than 2 targets or more than 2 catches. DeMarcus Ayers and Le'Veon Bell each had 2 catches in his game. So in the passing game, it was only Antonio Brown. There was no one else that did pretty much anything in this game. Eli Rogers had a 19-yard reception. He actually had a nice block that I thought shouldn't have been a penalty. They called a crackback block on him or whatever. But again, it was just Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell. And if this run game would have happened to get stopped, which it very well may this week against Kansas City, I mean, they might have had trouble in this game for sure. So they got to get more people involved next week because I don't think they can just rely on Bell and Antonio Brown to do what they did combined for 4 touchdowns in this game, again, against Kansas City. I think they're going to have to open things up with someone like Eli Rogers because I think Kansas City actually doesn't do great against players in the slot. So that would be like Eli Rogers or DeMarcus Ayers coming up and having a good game.
If the Steelers win a Super Bowl behind a good defense and a good running game with Le'Veon Bell and Roethlisberger kind of in this form that he has been during the win streak of 30 or less passes, does that hurt his legacy as a Hall of Famer or as an all-time great quarterback? Because there are already people who don't give him any credit for the first Super Bowl, saying that just because he played horrible in that game that he doesn't get any credit. But those people fail to realize without him in the playoffs those years, they never would have even made it to that Super Bowl.
I don't really think so because it would be his 3rd Super Bowl win?
Yeah.
If you won the Super Bowl, have 3 Super Bowl wins, I don't care who you are, man. If you threw 10 passes in your career, you know what I mean? You've done something. I mean, that's all it's about is Super Bowl wins. And if that's what he's doing, it doesn't matter if it's because of the run or if he's thrown for 5,000 yards in a season. But I will say, when you have the run game, it's a lot easier for a quarterback. And when you're thrown for 5,000 yards in a season, that pretty much means you're trying to play catch-up a lot.
Yeah, that's the thing that other people don't realize also. Then they say, oh, Brady does it without a running game. Okay, yeah, you're right. He has mostly won his Super Bowls without much of a running game. But put Le'Veon Bell on the Patriots team, and I guarantee you Brady's not throwing the ball 50 times a game. It just wouldn't make sense. You limit your exposure to turnovers when you run the football because it's so much easier to hold on to the football as opposed to, maybe throwing an interception. So you don't just throw it just because you can. If you have a running back as good as Le'Veon Bell, you let him tote the rock. The one thing I was interested when I went back and looked at the stats about this game, Pittsburgh held the ball for about 5 minutes less than Miami did. And I know Miami was trying to play catch up, but I mean, the Steelers ran the ball a lot and they still didn't hold the ball longer.
Yeah, well, I mean, in the first quarter, I guess, I don't know what the time of possession was throughout the game, but maybe it had to do with the first quarter because the Steelers were scoring quick. Antonio Brown on a quick wide receiver screen took it to the house, and then pretty much like a 10-yard crossing pattern he took to the house. Those were some pretty quick scores. And then Miami might have had the ball a lot in that first quarter, and that's what made it look like that.
Overall, any area of the football team you want to call out?
Yeah, the kick return game. Get Fitzgerald Toussaint out. This is ridiculous, man. He averaged 13.5 yards per kick return. He took one out of the end zone after hesitating for a minute and then got to like the 10-yard line. This guy's horrible. Sammy Coates had a 22-yard return. That's pretty much all he did in this game. We didn't know if they were going to dress him or not. He ended up dressing. He's way better than Fitzgerald Toussaint at kick return. And I'd put Eli Rogers back there over Toussaint. This guy's ridiculous.
So get Buttery Croissant out. Should he just be outright released? Dump him from the whole team?
Well, I don't think they're using him for anything else right now. You got D'Angelo Williams healthy. Le'Veon Bell's obviously going to be taking every snap as long as he's healthy. So right now, Toussaint, you really don't need him.
You're beat. Anything else about this Steelers-Dolphins game?
Well, what do you think, Miami, outside of their quarterback situation, what do you think they need to do offensively? We know they need to do a little bit of work defensively. They got some names out there, but they really were a letdown defensively this season. But do you think they need to do anything offensively? You got Jarvis Landry out there and Devontae Parker as your 1 and 2, and then Kenny Stills is that deep guy. He came up with a pretty solid game, 5 catches for 82 yards. Landry, Matt Moore was looking his way a ton. But do you think they need to do anything else?
Honestly, I think the Dolphins' biggest problem, they struggled a little bit early in the season, but they had a rookie head coach. They couldn't stay healthy along the line of scrimmage. And then, in this game, their defense was so banged up. I don't even think they had any starting defensive backs from the beginning of the year in there. But as far as offensively, I think if they can get that offensive line, I don't even want to say in shape, because they got the guys there that can do it. They proved that.
Yeah, really. Outside of those first 5 games, man, this offensive line really turned it on after that during that big winning streak that started with Pittsburgh. So
yeah, and then Mike Pouncey went out again late in the season, and I think that's a big downgrade from them to Keith Urbick, I believe, the former Steeler, playing at center for them in this football game. So maybe Mike Pouncey's long-term health is the biggest thing that could go right for the Dolphins in this offseason. They're close. I mean, they may not be close to a Super Bowl contender yet, but they're definitely, a team that'll be worth contending against next season, and I would expect them to make the playoffs again next year.
So who's your player of the game offensively?
Lev Bell. I mean, he set the Steelers franchise single game record for rushing in the playoffs, and he did it in the regular season this year. I mean, this guy toted the rock. I know Antonio Brown had those 2 early touchdown catches, which really, I believe, right there after it went down 14-0, I think the Miami players just kind of were like, oh, here we go. Those defensive backs, they really just didn't look like they wanted to play that well. It didn't look like anybody wanted to tackle Le'Veon, quite honestly, every time he had the football. So I'm going to give it to him, and I'm going to give a shout-out to Jesse James, because although he didn't have a great game or anything, there was that one tip ball about midway through the football game, and he had to reach up and grab it.
Yeah.
And Kiko Alonso, I think it was, came flying in and punched it with that club, and Jesse James still held on to the football. So good for you, young blood.
Yeah, Le'Veon Bell completely took over in the second half of this game. But I'm going to give it to Antonio Brown. What he did early set the tone. And really, Big Ben didn't go downfield that much. And when he did, it didn't work out. His biggest plays were no longer than 10 yards. So Antonio Brown, what he did early in his game was huge and set the tone, hopefully, for the rest of the playoffs.
Business is booming.
But yeah, we need more than just Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown moving forward. It's just going to get harder and harder, and it's going to have to take more than those two, because Le'Veon Bell, he took his patience to another level in this game. It was ridiculous, and I think it had to do with Miami just not having a good run defense. You run into a better run defense, and he's not going to be able to be that patient. We'll see, though. How about defensively?
Lawrence Timmons, 14 tackles, 2 sacks. I mean, this guy's old as hell. He said he stopped eating fast food in the offseason to be able to keep up with these young guys on defense. I thought that there was no chance he came back next year. I honestly believe if the Steelers could get a friendly call somehow with this guy, that you'll see him back as a Steeler next season.
I'm going to go with James Harrison. 10 tackles, a sack and a half, and that one of those sacks was huge. The forced fumble right at the end of the first half there that really could have got Miami back in this game. It could have made it a one-score game, and it looked like it was going to happen until Harrison made that play. So he's coming up big. How old is he? 38 years old?
Somewhere around there.
Ridiculous, man.
Dude's old as hell. But he's a baller. I keep saying, when's he going to fall off? And it's just never going to happen.
No, it doesn't look like it is. But I think he is done after this season, right?
Nah, he said he's still not sure.
Really?
He said he's going to see how his body feels in the offseason.
Keep coming back, man. Who cares? 45
Please
years.
believe.
I mean, if you can play till you're 45, man, do it.
Joey Porter, should he be kicked off the team?
Not yet. We'll see what happens with it.
Did you hear the cop that put him in handcuffs was only like 5'6", 148 pounds?
Yeah, I did see that.
It's hilarious. That'd be like Mike trying to put Easy in handcuffs.
Please believe. That would be like Mike trying to put Joey Porter in handcuffs.
Yeah. Anything else? That's all I got.
No, that's it, man.
All right, fans, questions, comments, hit us up on Twitter at bet_the_spread. Hit me up on Twitter at betjimthewin. Check out our Facebook page at facebook.com/betthespread. Keep coming back to YouTube and click and subscribe. Share it with your friends. Everybody loves a spread. We've been promoting on Facebook. More people better click on it this time.